Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a full-time show as Jacob and myself look back on Aston Villa 1, Crystal Palace 2, a disappointing night at Villa Park. I'm sure we'll all agree. This show is sponsored by Luke Roper, and if you want to get 20% off everything that Luke have to offer, then use the code TVV20 and you will get your 20% off their lovely, lovely garments. Right then, as I mentioned, I'm with Jacob Tanswell, the Athletics Aston Villa correspondent. Jacob, you were there last night. I was there last night. Not everyone was there last night. There was some empty seats at Villa Park. I find the cup so weird now because in terms of since Emery's been there, and look, I'm not having a go at Unai Emery. How could I ever have a go at that man for what he's done for this football club? But the cup experiences over the last few years in the domestic cups have not been brilliant. So Jacob and myself are here today to kind of discuss the question of should we be annoyed by last night? Jacob, are you annoyed by last night?
Do you know what? It's probably the most annoyed I've been after an Aston Villa game since I started covering them. I think you could excuse the cup games last year because you expected to go quite deep into the Conference League. There was games coming up, the Chelsea game and the FA Cup. You probably thought, we've got injuries. We're going to have a really intense schedule towards the end of the season. Even the Everton game as well. You thought this is a team that's quite light on numbers. It's their first time in Europe. Focus on that and realistically could win the Conference League instead of the League Cup. So no issue there. Where I think last night I was really quite annoyed. I know there was obviously a lot of debate online, which is understandable. I can understand both sides of the coin, so to speak. But I just think for Villa, I don't see top 4, top 5 as a huge achievement. I think obviously it's a great achievement, but in 25 years' time, I'm not going to be thinking, do you remember that year when Aston Villa finished 5th? Football's there to win trophies, and this Emery era would be deserving of rubber stamping the era with a trophy. And I think if you don't play football for trophies, then you kind of question the whole point of it. I get annoyed when everyone starts talking about can so and so get top 4, top 5. Focus on the season now. Focus on trying to win the Champions League now or trying to win a trophy. I think winning the Carabao Cup would be so fantastic for a team that's not won it for 28, 29 years, any silverware. Even Birmingham have won the League Cup before Villa have. So I just think the way that I have no issue with the starting lineup yesterday. I think it was really competitive, like Emery rightly pointed out. But that bench really, was it strong enough to really challenge and give Villa a lift when they needed it? It wasn't.
I mean, you said it on Twitter, and I thought in the ground, it was quite telling that he didn't bring Jacob Ramsey on at any point.
Yeah.
That kind of tells you what he thinks, which I find a bit strange because Emery mentioned in a press conference either last week or the week before, he kind of said, about wanting to win something. And I'm with you that I think that team out there was competitive enough to win the game.
Yeah.
Palace obviously went really strong. The only kind of weak link in their side, the only big change they made was goalkeeper, and Villa didn't do enough to put that goalkeeper under pressure because, quite frankly, he's not a very good goalkeeper, and Villa should have done more. I didn't realise it was him in the first half, but then I think he should have probably saved Duran's goal. In all honesty, and I realised in the second half when he was in front of the holes who it was, and thought, have some shots, because the goalkeeper was a disaster zone for Nottingham Forest last season, and they couldn't replace him quick enough in the second half of the season. I just find it's such a strange, like an eerie atmosphere last night, quite a strange atmosphere throughout. At the end of the game, you didn't kind of get the impression that Villa wanted to kind of get back into it. It was all very slow and tedious. There was no penetration. They weren't trying to play through the lines. Maybe they didn't have the players on the pitch to do that at that point of the game. A few youngsters have come on to kind of get experience and chase the game, which I don't know is necessarily the right message when they're coming on in a game that you're chasing and you're taking off big players who'd started the game. I just think with the Carabao Cup, I don't think it impacts. You get deep in the Conference League, for example, your Thursday, Sunday. I think that heavily affects your Premier League season. The volume of games in the Carabao Cup, bearing in mind if we'd have won last night, we'd have played 2 games in the competition and we'd be in a quarter-final. I don't see how that impacts your season massively. And you look at some of the other teams in action last night who've, they've made changes as well, but ultimately they've gone through. It does feel a little bit like a missed opportunity to go on and potentially try and win something. It is strange.
Yeah, it does feel like there are nuances to this argument. It's not a case of, I see on social media it's quite divided whether saying, oh, Emery did the right thing or Emery didn't do the right thing, or Villa disrespected it or Villa really did the right thing. I think it's quite it's nuanced in the debate. I think
Yeah, same.
you might think to yourself, we hope Villa will get deep in the Champions League, but reasonably they could be out of it by February, and they could only have league games by then. I just think the cup games, like you say, there's only a couple more to go, and it's such the most advantageous route to get a trophy. And you see with Man City yesterday, they didn't, they didn't really take it seriously. Guardiola has made no mistake in saying this is more of a hindrance, but he still had quite a lot of strength on the bench. Even Haaland was on the bench; he didn't come on, but you think, why can't Watkins or just one player that could be on the bench? Yuri Tillemans, for example, just one player on the bench, you could come for 20 minutes. That won't do them any harm. I just think the bench was imbalanced, really. I think you have Jacob Ramsey and Matty Cash, but you didn't have a lot else. And the young kids shouldn't be expected to try and overturn a game at that point. It just felt like the balance of the bench was my main issue. The starting lineup, I had no issue with. I think it's quite strong, good enough to win, but you need that firepower for the bench, and that was the issue. Of course, Emery's fantastic, and we've waxed lyrical about him so many times. But you can think, okay, or disagree with him, and I disagreed with him yesterday. It's probably his first time, but I just felt how Villa are and where they are. These players could play a lot more. Watkins has actually played this much this season. He's been playing 60 minutes most games. He could have been on that bench, and that's the issue that I had. If fans want to staunchly defend Emery, that's absolutely fine. And you could argue that Wharton and Eze's injuries prove that.
Yeah, a few people saying that in the chat.
But I'm not saying start these guys. I'm saying you can bring these guys on and manage their load. And if you think that getting into top 5 is more essential than winning a cup, then absolutely fine. But I'm here to win trophies or think about winning trophies. I don't really care if you finish 4th or 5th. Champions League's great, but I'd rather focus on this season rather than always looking ahead to where we could finish at the end of the year.
I mean, I'm kind of with the people who would say finishing in the top 4 or 5 and getting Champions League next season is more important than winning a cup. Financially, it's definitely more important. I think that's part of the problem with the Carabao Cup is that the money you get for winning it isn't great. So the clubs aren't interested in it from a financial perspective. So I'm with people who would say, finishing top 4, getting Champions League again is way more important for the football club than winning the Carabao Cup. But I don't think, I think you can do both. I genuinely think last year with the Conference League, when we were asking that question, I do think it made finishing in the top 4 harder, and that was proven at the end of the season when we kind of limped towards the finish line, and that could have gone wrong at the end of the season for us. But luckily, Spurs didn't seem to fancy winning football matches, so we managed to still get 4th. But I just don't think. I mean, ultimately, I suppose Unai Emery knows more than I do, but I just think ultimately the Carabao Cup doesn't influence things that much, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it was weird because obviously, like you say, Emery said it was his dream to win a trophy last year, and I thought this could be a real good time for. Emery's got the Champions League objective now. If he wins a trophy, then wow, he would go down as unquestionably one of Villa's best managers, maybe the best, for what he's done. And I get the point about Wharton and Eze, but they started games. I'm not saying that Watkins and Rodgers and Tillemans should have started the game, but just having the option of them on the bench would have been fantastic. And the fact that he didn't bring Jacob Ramsey on, I just think is a bit of a misstep. And Champions League's great, and if you want to look at the financial side of things, absolutely fine. But none of that money's going into my pocket or your pocket. Supporters are there not to get hope that Villa earn extra money. They're there to help them win trophies. So I just think that day at Wembley, even a semi-final at Villa Park, first or second leg, would have just been so fantastic. And it was such a good opportunity. And Villa aren't getting tired at this point of the season. If this was an FA Cup game,
that's what I was trying to say.
Villa, if this was FA Cup in January or February, I wouldn't probably feel as strongly about it, because I'd say, there's a lot of games coming up. We know the schedule. We know that Villa are in the Champions League knockouts. But right now, they're fresh legs. They've got a big squad. They're all fully fit. At least have a couple on their bench.
Yeah. But people, I've lost the comment now, but Lee Johnson saying, how people would have moaned if we'd looked jaded on Sunday. From that point of view, we changed a lot of players. I've got no problem whatsoever with the team selection, because I think that was a strong enough team to go and win the game. My issue would come then with, I'm not sure, it didn't feel like Villa. The application didn't feel fully there at the end of the game. It didn't feel like we were trying to get back into the tie once we went 2-1 down. We didn't do any of the things that we're normally quite good at. And look, I get it's going to be a little bit disjointed when you've got there's 3 players out that barely played well, if at all, in 2024, and 2 of them have barely played for a year. You've got players that haven't got the relationship because they're not playing in the 11 everywhere. You've got no rhythm. So I understand that it's going to be difficult from that perspective. I guess another problem I have with it is probably more aimed at the club rather than Emery. Because obviously, fans are paying a lot for tickets at the moment. The ground's empty-ish last night compared to what it normally is. The way they marketed it is like they're doing you a favour. Oh, tickets are only £25 throughout the ground for adults. That's still a fair amount of money when you're being asked to pay for Champions League tickets and season tickets, which a lot of people pay monthly as well. So people have made the effort to go. I say made the effort. Look, I haven't made effort to go. I wanted to go. I bought a ticket. I've chosen to go. But do you know what I mean? But you go there and I just feel like they've always offered that first round of the Cup at Villa Park for free. Why is it £25? So when you throw all the things together that have ended up happening last night, I'm not saying it should be free, but tenner for adults and a fiver for kids, or kids for £1 or whatever. Like, you're still asking people to pay a lot of money at a time when they're already paying a lot of money for the football club. And just what I watched last night, I just thought, really, was there any point me doing that? What was the point of me being there last night?
Yeah, because I completely agree. But even last year, the Everton game which Villa lost,
shocking.
that was £30, and in fairness, I'd been told privately by the officials that made the decision that they regretted that, and they saw that as a misstep. It does feel like if Villa don't take this very seriously, why should we spend £25 on watching a Villa team that don't really prioritise this competition? But I still think in certain parts they play well. I think there's a good intensity among the young players that are coming back. I thought Kamara and Minks, brilliant to see them play. I thought there was a good intensity, but it just felt like, like you said, the last 10-15 minutes, Emery didn't really seem too keen or really be that proactive to really get that final goal. And like you say, the 3 young lads that came on, they obviously not well versed in understanding the patterns as well on the pitch and in actual practice. So it did feel like Villa could have played for another half an hour. They probably wouldn't have scored or even mastered a chance because they weren't even progressing the ball. But I just feel like, I don't want to come across overly negative. I'm sure in the comments there'll be people disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine.
Not really.
But I just feel like we're always this is all football fans. We're always thinking about what's happening in May. Where are we going to finish? What's happening? Why do we just think of the here and now sometimes? I just think this was a great opportunity against Crystal Palace, who aren't a very good side at the moment. They, especially not with Wharton and Eze going off, and this is a really good time. And people say, players are jaded. They're not jaded yet. Trust me. Physically, they're all very strong. They're in a good position. Maybe in a couple of months we can have that discussion. But right now, they're absolutely fine, and it was a great opportunity. And I think it's a big opportunity missed, and a trophy and a memorable day at Wembley would have come.
I guess the other problem is they're under pressure now. It feels like if they don't win on Sunday, it kind of isn't all worth it. Villa have had this before in cup competitions under previous managers. If you then don't go on and win your league game, people ask questions of, well, what was the point? What was the point of doing it? We didn't win anyway. If we win on Sunday, everyone completely forgets about Wednesday. Of course they do, but if you don't, you've then got lingering questions of, well, why did we do that for? Because we've gone and lost on Sunday anyway. Let's move away and just talk about the game then in general. I know you already just did it a little bit. I don't know whether you know this. I haven't seen anything this morning. Team selection wise, where I was expecting to see Robin Olsen in goal. I was expecting to see Ross Barkley in central midfield. Where were they?
Ross Barkley, for me, I thought would play as well. Maybe it's a sign that he sees Barkley as a player that is pushing on that first team door to start. He played 45 minutes again the other day, and maybe
McGinn played 90, didn't he? And he's coming back from injury.
The reason for McGinn is that Emery said it afterwards. He wanted him to get back up to speed again. He thought he needed minutes in his legs. But with Barkley, I think it's slightly different as well. But similar to Robin Olsen, you maybe. Emery keeps talking about certain players like Nedeljkovic and Joe Gauci needing experience at Villa Park in first team games. So you do wonder, Robin Olsen's, he's an experienced guy. He doesn't probably need minutes. He knows his game now. Where Gauci's still 23, 24, still developing. So I think he wanted to give him a basic exposure. and he thought that'd be better served than Robin Olsen doing it.
Okay.
But yeah, even I was really surprised that he didn't even have Olsen and Barkley on the bench either.
I guess, maybe Ziyech on the bench again. It's just that experience of being in a match day squad. But they were two I expected to play. Seeing McGinn in central midfield surprised me. Obviously, we've seen glimpses of Kamara. He's come on the last few Premier League games anyway. But how good was it to see Tyrone Mings out there for 90 minutes as well? You wrote an article about him. Well, you haven't wrote it this morning. An article about Tyrone Mings has come out this morning that you've put together, just looking back over the 400 plus days that he's been missing, what he's done, how he's gone about getting back, how tough he's found it. Brilliant to see him out there. And he had some rusty moments, as you suspect, but he also had some brilliant moments where he did some really bits of critical defending at the time in the game.
Yeah, some fantastic defending. That first half, when probably that passage just demanding every single thing, I tested him to see if he's actually fully fit. That ball over the top for Schlapp, I think it was, and Gauchi stayed on his line. And
why did he stay on his line?
Mings let him know about it afterwards.
Furious.
He sprinted back and he just got the ball perfectly, and that was fantastic. But even in the second half, there were some low crosses getting whipped in from the right hand, so from Dalkovic's side, and there was low crosses. Some of these clearances, sliding clearances, inbox defending was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was really sharp. I was quite surprised he didn't come off on the 75th minute because he was limping. He was stretching out his calf. He looked pretty knackered. He was looking over to the bench to see what changes there would be. And he played the whole game, which I thought was fantastic. And yeah, for a guy that, if you saw those photos between his left leg and his right leg in February, and you see the amount of muscle he lost, to have rebuilt and to be up to speed with a game at that high level, that quick, is absolutely fantastic, and I was blown away by how good he was. Kamara, obviously, his injury wasn't quite as severe, but it's still a long-term injury, and he just looks fantastic. I know there was issues with him regarding Ez's header, but that goal he set up for Duran, his general play, the way he would drive forward, he would then try and break into past the opposition midfield. He was seamless in possession. His idea, he knew where the next pass was. He didn't take long at all to get up to speed, and you think, you're starting to think in the next couple of weeks, can he start getting into that Premier League starting 11?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's such a high level player, but Boubacar Kamara. I'm looking forward to seeing him with this version of Yuri Tillemans that we've got at the moment. I think that's going to be a really strong central midfield, and then that still leaves Onana and Barkley to come in the midfield as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really exciting. I thought Nedeljkovic did well at right back as well. He's very quick. Saw a lot of things from him that I liked last night. He's still very, very raw. Obviously, he's still a teenager. But I saw some glimpses from him last night that I quite liked.
Yeah, I like Nedeljkovic. I think he's got a good frame. He's going to have to fill out a little bit, but he's 18. He's very athletic. I think he can play at centre back at times. I think he could do the job as a third centre back. I think he's got good height. He's got almost like this swimmer, Mickey van der Ven type of gait, and I really like him. I think we saw when he came against Arsenal, he has got a bit of a blind spot marking the winger when the cross is from the other side. He doesn't really follow very well, and you saw that with Ez's header, with a bit of a mix up of him and Diego Carlos. But I think he looks really sharp. Emery is reluctant to start him in Premier League games. I think these are the type of games that he'll play a lot more. Maybe
not anymore, Jacob.
Well, FA Cup, you probably think January. Maybe he goes on loan. Maybe to get some experience. But you hope 18 months, 2 years down the line, then he's going to be a lot better for it.
Yeah, let's talk about Emi Buendia. He's cut a frustrated figure generally. I mean, to be fair, I feel like he's kind of got that demeanour. Just him. He always looks quite frustrated, doesn't he? But struggled to get in the game last night. Again, it's difficult to come into a bitty team. It's tough for him. He's not played much football. He's been coming on for like 5-10 minutes here or there. He's only started one game against Wickham in the last round of the cup. For him, it'll be disappointing that Villa have gone out of the cup because, again, I don't really see where minutes are going to come from for him going forward in the next few weeks whilst everyone's fit as they are at the moment. Yeah,
he needs to show a lot more that if he does get 5 to 10 minutes off the bench, he can make more of an impact. And that's probably the only time he'll get some game time. All I will say is it's pretty difficult playing as a second forward, isn't it, at the moment? Because you don't get a lot of touches. When you do get touches, you got pressure from different angles. Buendia still missing bit of drive like Rodgers has, where he can evade tackles and drive with it. I do wonder if he's probably better off the left, like the left inside number 10, like in that pre-season last year when I thought he was probably Villa's best player in pre-season before he got injured. He's playing off that side and looked really sharp, scored a few goals. But yeah, you do worry. Decision making not as quick, but there is a feeling, from his camp, but also Emery and the coaches, that the last couple of weeks he started to get a lot sharper in training. So you'd hope that next time he does come on, he can make an impact, because really for those type of players, if he can get a goal or an assist, that could change, confidence, and he might get a little bit more rhythm.
Yeah, Duran obviously scored again. We've probably done John Duran to death in recent weeks. It's great to see him score. I do think the keeper should have done better, but great to see him score again. Philogene was the other kind of person I wanted to talk about. Doesn't look quite right to me. Is it lack of confidence? It seems to be a lack of doing what he was good at Hull. I want to see him drive with the ball a little bit more and take people on, and I don't really think I'm seeing that at the moment.
Yeah, we said in the last podcast, didn't we, Dan, that we felt he was playing within himself, and there were flashes in the first half. He did a little flip-flap, did a 1-2 and then had the shot, and he thought, in small areas, tight areas, he's really good. He's very similar to Jadon Sancho in terms of he's not going to beat you with sheer pace, get the ball down the line, but he's very good in tight areas. He's good at combining with the left back or the closest midfielder. But you're right. I think he does look a little bit unsure. He's defensively aware. He knows his role, but you just feel like he can take a few more risks on the ball. But right now he's playing quite safe. I would actually mind him seeing him play off the right, because it would encourage him to actually get to the byline and cross the ball a little bit more. Because at the moment he's coming in on his right foot, and he's almost got the Grealishes about him at Man City, where he gets the ball, takes a few touches, then passes back again. So maybe for his development going on the right, but I'm sure it'll come. He just needs to keep going, and it probably doesn't help that Leon Bailey's suffering a similar patch.
I think he's showing glimpses in the last couple of games that he might be getting somewhere near back to his best. Every now and again he'll do something, and I think, oh, that's the Bailey of last season. But a lot of the time, and he spoke about this himself, in fact, saying he's nowhere near it at the moment. A lot of the time I'm looking at it and thinking, oh no, this is the Bailey from a couple of years ago. This isn't really what I want to see from him, because he was so important last season, and I think we rely quite heavily on him. Getting him back to his best level is really, really important in my opinion, because if he is at that level, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. He's different, especially now Diaby's gone. We don't have loads of players like that, but it's still just not quite there, not quite happening for him, Jacob.
No, it's not. He does look, Emery's trying to play him into form and rhythm, really. But there's a few times in the last couple of games at Villa Park where he's had a chance to shoot, but it's always like he's stretching for it, or he doesn't quite sort his feet, step pattern out. Yeah, and it just feels like that's probably indicative. And also, the more he plays, probably the more he's aware of that he's not in very good form. So he's snatching at chances. He's not flowing. I think the best of Leon Bailey last year was probably when he was playing on instinct, when he would just get the ball, cut inside, or drive down a line, and he's just very direct, would take risks. Where now he does look like he's overthinking things. He's aware that he's not going through the best run of form, and also, until recently, every single game he looked like he had some sort of knock. So I think he just needs to, like we say with Philogene, if he can get that first goal, if he can start a game really well, then I think that will do wonders for his confidence. But at the same time, there's a few players, in Villa's attacking areas like Philogene, that are going through the same issues. And it doesn't help also that he's got Conte or Cash, constantly swapping behind him, so he's not being able to build those relationships with the overlap.
No. Anything else you want to cover? I mean, I can't believe we're in November and Bailey hasn't. We're in November tomorrow and Bailey hasn't scored yet. I wouldn't have thought that would be something that would happen. That is a little bit of a concern, to be perfectly honest. Is there anything else you want to discuss from the game?
But you do wonder. I was thinking this last night, whether Villa are just trying to build up and not peak too soon. I don't know if it's a physical thing as well. I think Villa obviously got doing very well in the Premier League, but there's a few games where you think they're not quite at the level yet, where probably from February onwards last year, they kind of went on a decline. So maybe you'd hope that in January, in February, March, in the business time of the season, Villa will be on more of a peak than they are now. But yeah, I think Tottenham game is really important, because obviously there's been a few too many draws recently in the Premier League. I know Fulham was great, but other games you drop points, and Spurs is going to be very difficult. I think they blew Villa away really in the first half at their place last season.
Yeah,
Villa were lucky not to concede, were they? So I think they need to grow into the game and hope that Emery's tactics, and like he did so fantastic last year, pays dividends, because they might have a few injuries, might they?
Yeah, I mean, my highlight of last night was bumping into Jed Steer pre-game whilst I was eating my vegan
I saw
hot dog.
that.
I was eating my vegan hot dog.
Vegan hot dog.
Yeah,
You, oh wow.
someone shouted Dan and started walking over to me, and I thought, who's this going to be? Because he wasn't dressed like a normal Villa fan. Obviously, I was like, oh, it's Jed. Jed's
Well,
there.
yeah,
Right,
you're getting spotted by ex-Villa players, Dan. That's
I do kind of know
douche.
Jed anyway, and I know his wife Alice as well because she was at Sky for a while, so I do kind of know them both. It was nice to see him before the game. I was just thinking he never takes any credit for anything. Like, he's really hard to praise because he just doesn't accept it at all. But I did kind of think with him being there, like, I know we didn't win the game last night, but generally Villa wouldn't be in the position they're in now if it wasn't for people like him, like what he did in the Championship. We have Connor on this channel quite a lot, James Chester, Miller Yedin, people like that they were so important to getting Villa back into the Premier League, and now we are where we are. Like, he must come back and not recognise the place almost.
Yeah, it's great, and it's been good that he's been around Villa for the last 12 to 18 months, hasn't he? Doing, I always see him in the press box doing a lot of media work, which is fantastic as well. I think I don't want to come across too negative in this podcast, but I think it's just great to see, obviously, the likes of him there, but also Tyrone Mings, who was obviously in that Championship season. And for me, when the dust settles and any frustrations diminish, we'll probably look back at this game as a really big moment in Mings' career, hopefully, and the game that brought him back. So that would probably be the one standout memory from a night that I know I was disappointed with.
I mean, Tottenham did pick up a couple of injuries last night, didn't they? So again, they played the first choice team. Both their centre backs went off. I believe Romero and Van der Ven. It'd be nice if they were missing.
Happened last year, Dan, didn't it? Emerson and Ben Davies played.
It'd be nice if that. It'd be very nice if that did happen. Again, not that I would wish injuries on people, but now the injuries have happened, they may as well miss. in my opinion. Just a quick final question for you, then, Jacob. So, bearing in mind what Villa did last night, rotation, getting knocked out, not really laying a glove in the second half, and the fact that we've drawn 3 Premier League. We've drawn 3 of our last 4 Premier League games. It's Sunday kind of must win.
I don't know if Tottenham away can ever be must win. I think you probably said the other couple of fixtures that looked relatively easy on paper were probably must win. So I wouldn't put to that much pressure because it's still early in the season. But if Villa can just continue the unbeaten run, they've only lost once in the league this season. I think they'll just keep taking points, win the games after that. I think we find just if they do lose, you probably think that Tottenham are going to gain ground on them. So a point would be fine. I think it's important that you don't really read too much into the previous weeks and let that dictate your thoughts. I think regardless, a draw at Tottenham would be good.
I mean, it has been a happy hunting ground in recent seasons. Villa have won there twice, in a row. I think they won there in the lockdown year as well. So Villa have won games at Tottenham over the last few years. Incidentally, the 2 they didn't win were the 2 I was there. So it's a good job that I'm not going on Sunday. So yeah, I don't think it's must win, but it'd certainly be nice to win. I mean, it's nice to win any game, isn't it? But it'd be nice to win that on Sunday. Right, I did not anticipate doing half an hour on that game of football, but we've managed to do it, Jacob. Possibly even more happened in this podcast than happened in the second half of the game last night. Perhaps people found this podcast more entertaining than the game last night. I don't know. I know Sky had some problems last night as well, so some people couldn't even watch the game.
Really?
They didn't go. And then my dad decided not to go. And he's Sky Sports Plus wasn't working last night, so he didn't end up watching the game in the end. So I know people did miss it. So yeah, hopefully hopefully, even if one person's got something out of this full-time show that we've done, then that's something. Jacob, thank you ever so much for joining me. There will be a match preview on the show which I need to organise tomorrow ahead of the Spurs game on Sunday, so watch out for that. Stay tuned to all our socials where we tell you what's happening on the channel, although I've got to be honest, we're not great with the socials generally. I do all the things that I bang on about every single week, liking, subscribing with your post notifications on YouTube. Leave us a comment as well, and if you could leave a lovely review on Apple, that really helps us, and give us 5 stars as well, and 5 stars on Spotify would also be very nice. Thank you to Jacob for joining me. Thank you to Luke Roper for sponsoring us. TVV20 gets you 20% off everything that Luke have to offer. Have a brilliant rest of the week ahead of Sunday, and I will see you tomorrow on the match preview. Up the Villa.